This is Bob Knight. You may know him from the many NCAA and Big Ten championships he won as coach of Indiana University. But more likely, you know him for throwing this chair. It's not surprising that the, we'll say, strong-willed coach had some bouts of beef throughout his career. But it's kind of surprising he had his thickest beef with the very school where he made his name. Knight and Indiana didn't start out contentious, rather the opposite. Over his 29-year career there, Bob Knight was extremely successful. And along with that success came a deep devotion from fans. They loved him for winning, but his feisty personality was part of it. He was tough and got results. He was a point of pride, elevated to mythical hero status in the state of Indiana. Just ask the governor. A bonus of being so loved, Knight was untouchable. Even when he did egregious, violent, sometimes abusive stuff, Knight kept his job and received no discipline, not even a reproachful look. An English professor dubbed him the Emperor of Indiana. In Knight's first 16 years at the school, University President John Ryan never reprimanded him. What's all this on the screen we're rolling through? Just some of the stuff Knight did during those 16 years. Look at this one. This one seems illegal. Anyhow, safe to say, Knight and Indiana did not have beef. They had the opposite of beef. Sponge cake. Decorated to say, "Yay, Bobby, it's good you did that, please don't leave us." In 1987, Knight's 17th year with IU, a new university president took office, Thomas Ehrlich. And seemed like Ehrlich didn't talk to the governor or anybody else in Indiana before he took the job. Within the first year of his tenure, Ehrlich twice censured Knight. Once after Knight got 3 techs and pulled his team from the floor in an exhibition game against the Soviet Union. And once after Knight, when asked in an NBC interview about unfair refereeing, responded with an unfortunate metaphor. He said, "If rape is inevitable, relax and enjoy it." Monster. Ehrlich just made a couple public comments, nothing major, kind of the bare minimum when an employee makes headlines with shocking behavior. But, Knight wasn't having it. This new guy dared to slightly criticize the Bob Knight? Oh no. The coach threatened to leave for a job at New Mexico University. The residents of Bloomington were like, wow, that's an overreaction to a mild scolding. No, absolutely not. They implied threats of violence against Thomas Ehrlich in print. Students rallied for Knight, and alumni threatened to withhold contributions. Knight ended up staying, and Ehrlich learned his lesson. The next time Knight's behavior made national headlines, in this instance for a photo so racially insensitive it pissed off civil rights groups and had political figures calling for his firing, Ehrlich was silent. Knight and Indiana sampled beef and decided to stick with the sponge cake. This time the icing read, "Please forgive me, Emperor." In 1992, Miles Brand replaced Ehrlich as IU's president, and it seemed like he was going to keep up the status quo. When the NCAA fined the university $30,000 because Knight went ballistic on a press liaison, Brand didn't get involved. But it soon became harder to simply look the other way at Knight's antics/abuses because CNN Sports Illustrated was like, "Hey everyone, look at this." In 2000, they aired a story in which former Hoosier Neil Reed alleged Knight choked him during a 1997 practice.
Come at me, reach, and put his hand around my throat. He had one hand. He came at with 2 hands, but grabbed me with 1 hand.
Reed also claimed the coach once kicked Brand out of practice, and Brand humbly obeyed. And another former player told the story of Knight wiping himself, showing his players the toilet paper, and saying, "This is how you guys are playing." Now, you might expect this to be a huge deal, shockwaves through campus, Brand forced to take action, etc., etc. But nah, the university just denied everything, and the team smeared Neil Reed as hard as they could. In Indiana, Knight's reputation was untouched. I mean, I'm sure there were some individuals who didn't like him, but even state politicians were on his side. Now, nationally, people were starting to doubt Knight's methods. Choking allegations are never great, but also, the Hoosiers got upset in the first round of March Madness the day after the story broke. Indiana basketball had been declining for a bit, The previous year, they were eliminated in the second round by 25 points. Since '97, they were just 4-10 in March. And there was speculation this was Knight's fault. His players were afraid of him, playing stiff. Heralded recruits were transferring away because of him. In March of 2000, President Brand took more action against Knight than anyone had ever dared before. He launched an investigation into Reed's claims. Sure, the investigation was being performed by Indiana board members who had publicly supported Knight and doubted Reed, but even a biased investigation was unprecedented. During the review, many more allegations surfaced from the coach's past, which you can see to the right of your screen. Other players denied this one, and these. This one Knight refuted years later by saying he didn't call her a fucking bitch, he said she was acting like a bitch. So, different. And then also the tape of the Neil Reed incident was leaked to the press. Let's give it a watch. If you're like me, you're probably thinking, okay, he choked him right there. But Knight's loyal supporters were like, he touched him near his neck, there's no proof of squeezing, this video tells us nothing. So, Reed wasn't definitively choked, but Knight was still physically rough with a player. Plus all this stuff, and let's not forget the win column. Was Knight gonna get the axe? His zealous base of supporters were working hard. For example, one guy, who didn't even go to Indiana, raised $1,500 for pro-Knight billboards. But was that sort of thing enough to combat all these allegations? Yeah. Well, that combined with an apparent last-minute repentant promise to change. Instead of firing Knight, Brand fined him $30K, suspended him for 3 games, and put him on a zero-tolerance policy going forward. Diehard supporters of the coach said, fine. Everyone else said stuff like, this was never a real investigation, Brand is gutless, morally bankrupt, a coward who is allowing Knight's reign of terror to continue. But then, 17 weeks later, on September 10th, 2000, Brand did what nobody thought he was capable of. The president listed a series of minor zero-tolerance infractions, none damning on their own, but cumulatively enough to warrant his firing. Knight had rebuttals for all this, ranging from, my lawyer said to keep a low profile, to, I actually spoke politely to this person. This one was the most public and served as the final straw. A student said, hey Knight, what's up? And Knight either gently touched his arm and told him to address him with respect, or grabbed the kid and screamed profanity at him. But it didn't matter. Knight was out. And while that was what the national media was clamoring for, at home in Indiana, 3,000 students protested outside Brand's campus residence, chanting against him, pulling down light posts, and demanding beer. It's college after all. Oh, they also burned an effigy of Brand. College. And the backlash wasn't just from students gone wild. Alumni pulled monetary support. The fans tried to sue the school. Scott May, beloved member of IU's '76 championship team, wouldn't let his son go to Indiana. His son was a Bloomington High School standout and had been a presumptive Hoosier recruit. And Bob Knight himself? Angry, defiant, outspoken, but not in an explosive, chair-throwing way, in a defensive way. He wasn't screaming at the offending party, he was in the media saying, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault.
What did zero tolerance mean to you?
Nobody ever explained that to me, Jeremy.
So, we certainly have beef, but it seems like it's between Knight and the Brand administration, not Knight and IU. I mean, look at how the Indiana community supported him. They sent death threats to the kid who claimed Knight grabbed him. That's devotion. But Knight, a man who knows how to hold a grudge, decided the beef would be between him and Indiana University. He boycotted the school for 20 years, long after anyone in the offending administration was left. Brand left in 2002. Knight wouldn't speak at the school or go to games. In 2009, he didn't attend his own Indiana Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Former player A.J. Guyton wrote a heartfelt, lengthy open letter imploring Knight, as a personal favor to him, to come to Guyton's Hall of Fame ceremony. But it didn't work. In 2016, the coach skipped the 40th anniversary of his 1976 championship. Knight didn't even respond to many invites from the school. All the players went, even Scott May, the guy who wouldn't let his son play for IU. Now, the coach didn't just passively sit things out. Passive isn't really his style. A month after skipping the 40th anniversary celebration, Knight spoke at a fundraising fish fry for Purdue, one of Indiana's greatest rivals, especially in Knight's era. Knight once dressed up a donkey in Purdue gear and said the jackass was smarter than Purdue's athletic director. All this stuff wasn't hurting an administration that had long ago moved on. It was hurting the former players who gave their college careers to him. It was hurting the fans who bought billboards to support him and burned effigies of his detractors. It hurt a community that loved him despite, and sometimes because of, his flaws. So what the hell was he doing? In 2017, Dan Patrick tried to get an answer to that question and was met with some classic Bob Knight shock and awe.
Aren't all those people out of there, though, Coach?
I hope they're all dead.
Well, I know some of them are, but...
Patrick's referencing Miles Brand, who passed away from cancer in 2009.
I don't know.
Well, I hope the rest of them go.
Okay, so Knight was still really mad, and there's nowhere else to put that anger, so the IU community had to take it. But in a testament to how beloved he was, the fans weren't mad at him. Maybe sad, maybe a little frustrated, but they weren't going to turn their back on him. Knight's freeze-out eventually thawed. With his health declining, he perhaps gained some perspective, and in 2020, Coach Knight finally returned to an Indiana basketball game. The packed stadium couldn't be happier. The fans didn't follow in his stomping, grudge-holding footsteps. They cheered and chanted his name. They were moved to tears seeing their hero return home, seeing the program they cared about become whole again. Knight's relationship with Indiana started as an emperor eating celebratory sponge cake. He could do whatever he wanted with no consequences. And that style of relationship never really changed with his legions of supporters. They cried with happiness to see him again after he allegedly choked a kid and then turned his back on them for 20 years. But we still have to say this was a beef between Bob Knight and Indiana because an Indiana administration eventually had enough of him. And then Knight extended that beef to the whole school. It's a shame, really. But hold on, so is all this stuff. I didn't even highlight that one earlier. Thank you so much for watching, and I apologize if I've offended any Knight supporters. Please don't hate me or try to ruin me by searching for secrets from my past. In 3rd grade, I threw up in the library. Okay, we've got more videos, and you can subscribe right here. For Secret Base, I'm Clara Morris. Good night and good game.